The crystal chandelier above the dining table caught the light from a dozen candles, casting shadows across the faces of people who were supposed to be my family. I sat in the chair my husband Philippe had pulled out for me, watching him kiss my cheek before taking his seat at the head of the table. His mother, Genevieve, sat to my right, her thin lips pressed together in what I'd learned to recognize as her version of a polite smile. His father, Bernard, was already pouring wine for everyone except me, which I'd stopped questioning years ago. "Thank you so much for having me," I said in English, the only language they believed I spoke. "Everything looks beautiful." Philippe translated my words into French and his mother nodded, saying something back that made everyone chuckle. Philippe didn't translate that part. He never did. 5 years of marriage and I'd grown used to sitting at tables where entire conversations happened around me, words flowing like water I couldn't cup in my hands. Except I could. I understood every single word. My grandmother had been born in Haiti, spoke fluent French and Creole, and spent my childhood summers teaching me both languages while my mother worked double shifts at the hospital. "Knowledge is power, baby girl," she'd whisper while we practiced conjugations over sweet tea. "Don't ever let anyone know everything you understand. Sometimes the best weapon is what people don't know you have." I hadn't thought much about those lessons until I met Philippe at a tech conference in Boston 3 months after Grammy died. He was charming, sophisticated, and his accent made every word sound like music. When he told me he was impressed by my software engineering presentation, I felt seen in a way I hadn't since losing her. We talked until the conference hall closed and he never asked if I spoke French. I never offered. Now, sitting at his family's table in their Manhattan apartment, watching his cousin Celeste lean too close to him while she laughed at something his father said, I understood why Grammy had been so insistent about keeping secrets. "Simone looks pretty tonight," Philippe's sister Isabelle said in French, and I kept my face neutral, reaching for my water glass. "Did you buy her that dress?" "Of course," Philippe responded, also in French. "She has no sense of style. I have to choose everything or she'd show up looking like she shops at Target stores." I took a sip of water. It tasted like metal. Or maybe that was just my heart, turning to something cold and hard in my chest. His mother laughed softly. "You're very patient with her, mon chéri. When will you tell her?" "Tell me what?" I cut into my salmon, keeping my movements slow and natural. Around me, the conversation continued in French, rapid and comfortable, everyone assuming I was just a smiling prop at their table. "After the signing next week," Philippe said, glancing at me with that warm smile he wore like a mask. "Once she transfers her half of the company rights to me, then I'll file for divorce. The lawyer says it's cleaner this way." The fork in my hand felt suddenly heavy. I set it down gently, precisely, and picked up my wine glass instead. The red liquid swirled as my hand shook slightly, but I brought it to my lips and drank like nothing had changed. "And Celeste?" Bernard asked, nodding toward Philippe's cousin who sat directly across from me. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than my car, and her dark hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. She was watching Philippe with an expression I'd been too trusting to recognize before this moment. "We'll wait a few months before going public," Philippe said, reaching under the table. I couldn't see where his hand went, but Celeste's smile widened. "We've already been together 2 years. What's a few more months?" 2 years. I'd been married to him for 5. I did the math automatically, like running code in my head. That meant he'd been with her since before we even signed the papers on our apartment. Since before I'd put my name on all those patents for the app we'd built together. Since before I'd trusted him with everything. "Does she suspect anything?" Genevieve asked, looking directly at me with those cold blue eyes. I smiled back at her, raising my glass slightly as if toasting her generosity for hosting. "She's too simple to suspect anything," Philippe said, and I watched his mouth form words that were destroying my world. "She barely understands business. I've been preparing the documents for weeks, and she signs everything I put in front of her without reading. Next Tuesday she'll sign away her rights to the technology and then she'll have nothing." "What about the source code?" Celeste asked. "Doesn't she have all the technical knowledge?" Philippe waved his hand dismissively. "I've been documenting everything she does. Once I have her signature on the transfer papers, I can hire any competent programmer to maintain the system. She made it seem more complicated than it is because it made her feel important." I wanted to throw my wine in his face. I wanted to scream. I wanted to overturn the table and watch their expensive china shatter across their expensive floor. Instead, I kept my expression pleasant and interested, like a well-trained dog who sits patiently while its owner discusses giving it away. "She'll be devastated," Isabelle said, and she actually sounded sympathetic. "She really does love you, Philippe." She loves the idea of me, he corrected. She loves telling people she married a French entrepreneur. She loves the lifestyle. But she was always temporary. You don't build a legacy with someone like that. Someone like that. Someone like me. I cut another piece of salmon and chewed slowly, counting to 10 in French inside my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The apartment is in both names, Bernard said, switching to business mode. How will you handle that? She'll be too emotional to think clearly, Philippe explained. I'll offer to buy her out for half of what it's worth, tell her it's generous given the circumstances. She'll take it because she won't want to fight. American women always choose the path of least resistance. This American woman was currently calculating exactly how much he owed me for 3 years of unpaid overtime building his company, plus interest. Celeste laughed at something Philippe said that I missed, too focused on keeping my breathing steady. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're so quiet tonight, Simone. Is everything okay? I looked at her hand covering mine, at her French manicure and her diamond ring that probably came from Philippe. I looked up at her face, at the fake concern in her eyes, and I smiled. I'm just tired, I said in English, and Philippe immediately translated for everyone. Work has been really demanding lately. You should rest more, Genevieve said through Philippe's translation, her voice dripping with false sweetness. You look exhausted. What she actually said in French was, she looks old. You're making the right choice leaving her before she completely falls apart. I thanked her for her concern and excused myself to use the bathroom. I walked calmly through their apartment, past the artwork Philippe had bought with money from our company, past the furniture I'd helped select when I thought I was building a home. I locked the bathroom door behind me and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My grandmother had been right. Knowledge was power. But Grammy hadn't warned me how much it would hurt to know the truth. I looked at myself, at the dress Philippe had chosen, at the hairstyle his mother had criticized in French last Christmas, at the face of a woman who'd been living in a lie so complete she hadn't even known she needed to escape it. But I knew now. I understood everything. I pulled out my phone and opened a new note. I started typing everything I'd heard, every word, every detail. Then I opened my messages and texted my old college friend Jerome, who'd become a corporate lawyer in Boston. I need help. Can you call me tomorrow? It's urgent. His response came back within seconds. Are you safe? Say yes or no. I looked at the bathroom door, at the lock that suddenly seemed very thin. Yes, I typed. But I won't be if I don't move fast. I deleted the conversation, cleared my history, and flushed the toilet for authenticity. I washed my hands and reapplied my lipstick, the same shade Philippe had told me looked acceptable. Then I walked back to the dining room where my husband and his family were planning my destruction, and I sat down at the table with a smile. Sorry, I said brightly. What did I miss? Philippe translated the question and his father laughed. Nothing important, Bernard said in French. Just family business. Nothing you need to worry your pretty little head about. I nodded like I understood only the tone, not the words. I ate my dessert while they discussed my future like I wasn't there. I thanked Genevieve for the lovely evening and kissed Philippe's mother's cheek. On the drive home, Philippe held my hand and told me in English how proud he was of me for trying so hard with his family. They're warming up to you, he lied smoothly. My mother said you looked nice tonight. I squeezed his hand back and smiled. I'm so glad. Your family means everything to you and I want them to accept me. He raised my hand to his lips and kissed it. They will, mon amour. Just give it time. Time. I had 1 week until Tuesday, when I was supposed to sign papers I wouldn't read, trusting a man who'd been betraying me for years. 1 week to plan, to prepare, to make sure that when I struck back, it would be with the precision and power of someone who'd been underestimated for far too long. 1 week to show Philippe and his family what this simple American woman was capable of when she finally stopped pretending she didn't understand. I met Philippe Moreau on a Wednesday afternoon in March, during the lunch break at the Tech Forward conference in Boston. I'd just given a presentation on machine learning algorithms for predictive analytics, and I was riding high on adrenaline and the scattered applause from a room full of engineers who actually understood what I was talking about. Grammy had been gone for 3 months, and it was the first time since her funeral that I'd felt like myself again. He was standing by the coffee station, tall and elegant in a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. When I reached for a cup, he smiled at me with perfect white teeth and said, "Your presentation was remarkable. I've been working on a similar concept for retail applications." His accent turned every syllable into something sophisticated. I was used to the flat, efficient speech of Boston tech brothers. Philippe sounded like he was narrating a French film. "Thanks, I said, pouring coffee that smelled burnt but was free. What kind of retail applications? We talked for 20 minutes that turned into an hour, standing by that coffee station while the afternoon session started without us. He explained his vision for an app that would revolutionize how small businesses managed inventory using predictive algorithms. I explained how the machine learning models could be optimized for real-time data processing. We were finishing each other's technical sentences within 30 minutes. We should work together, he said, and his dark eyes were intense. This could be something extraordinary. I should have been more careful. I should have done research, asked questions, verified his credentials. But I was lonely and grieving and 27 years old, and he made me feel like my brain was the most attractive thing about me. After a lifetime of guys who wanted to explain technology to me instead of learn from me, Philippe seemed different. We exchanged numbers. He texted me that night, "I can't stop thinking about your algorithm architecture. And also about you." For 3 months we built the foundation of what would become our app. We met in coffee shops and libraries, video called across time zones when he returned to New York, emailed technical documents back and forth at 3 a.m. The technology was mine, but he had the business vision and the connections. He knew investors, understood marketing, could pitch our concept in rooms I'd never be invited into. "You're the genius," he told me over dinner one night in June. "I'm just the person who makes sure the world knows it." He proposed in August at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Boston Harbor. The ring was modest by his family's standards, I'd later learn, but it was more than I'd ever imagined. He got down on one knee and asked me in French, then repeated it in English when he saw my confused expression. "I want to spend my life building things with you," he said. "Starting with us." I said yes. Of course I said yes. I was in love with him, with us, with the future we were creating together. We got married at City Hall in September with 2 witnesses we pulled off the street. His family was disappointed they couldn't attend, but they sent an expensive crystal vase that broke during the move to New York. The move happened fast. Philippe's family owned an import business in Manhattan that was struggling with modernization. He convinced me to relocate, promising that we'd launch our app from New York where the investor network was stronger. I gave up my apartment in Cambridge, said goodbye to my friends, and moved into Philippe's place in the Upper West Side. That's when things started to shift, so gradually I didn't notice the transformation. "Let me handle the business meetings," Philippe suggested. "Your time is better spent on development. Plus, some of these investors are old-fashioned. They respond better to a certain kind of presentation." Translation: they responded better to white men with French accents than black women with technical expertise. I spent my days coding in our apartment while Philippe networked. He'd come home with stories about investor meetings, promising opportunities, deals that were almost closed. I trusted him completely. We were partners. "I need you to sign some incorporation papers," he said casually one October evening. "Just standard stuff. You're listed as CTO, I'm CEO. 50-50 ownership." I signed without reading. Why would I read? He was my husband. He started teaching me French phrases over dinner, laughing gently when I pretended to struggle with pronunciation. "Repeat after me, je t'aime. I love you." I repeated it dutifully, not mentioning that Grammy had taught me the phrase when I was 8 years old, along with hundreds of others. I never told him I spoke French. At first, it was because he seemed to enjoy teaching me. Later, after I met his family and heard the way they spoke about Americans when they thought no one understood, I kept silent because Grammy's voice echoed in my head. "Sometimes the best weapon is what people don't know you have." His family visited for the first time that November. They spoke in rapid French around our dining table while I served food I'd spent all day preparing. I heard Philippe's mother say I was acceptable for now, and his father comment that, "At least she cooks well enough." Philippe never translated those parts. He just smiled at me and said they were commenting on how delicious everything was. I launched our app in January, working 18-hour days to perfect the code while Philippe handled publicity. We called it Predict Right, and it was everything we'd imagined. Small businesses started subscribing immediately. Revenue climbed. Tech blogs wrote about us. We were profiled in a magazine as the couple revolutionizing retail technology. In the photo, Philippe had his arm around my waist and we were both smiling. I was wearing a dress he'd bought me because he said my own clothes were too casual for press photos. I didn't mind. I thought we were building something together. His family's import business stabilized once I built them a custom inventory system for free. Philippe said it was important to help family. I agreed. Family was everything to me. I'd lost my mother to cancer when I was 23, and Grammy followed 4 years later. Philippe's family was supposed to be my family now. They thanked me in French, words I understood but pretended not to. At least she's useful for something, Genevieve had said. Philippe chose well. She works hard. I smiled and nodded when Philippe translated a completely different sentiment. By our first anniversary, Predict Right had 200 business subscribers. By our second we had 1,000. The money started flowing. We moved to a bigger apartment, bought expensive furniture, traveled to tech conferences in Paris and London and Tokyo. Philippe always did the presentations while I sat in the audience, proud of our work. You're better behind the scenes, he explained. You're more comfortable with code than crowds. It wasn't true, but I let him believe it. I let him shape me into someone smaller, quieter, more convenient. I stopped going to conferences alone. I stopped maintaining relationships with college friends who asked too many questions about why I wasn't more visible in our company. I stopped questioning why my name appeared smaller than Philippe's on all our marketing materials. It's just branding, he assured me. Everyone knows you're the technical genius. Except they didn't. Because Philippe never told them. In investor meetings I occasionally attended, he'd reference my team and my developer without naming me. When reporters asked about the technology, he'd give vague explanations that made it sound like collaborative effort rather than my specific creation. I told myself it didn't matter. We were married. What was his was mine, what was mine was his. We were a unit. His cousin Celeste started appearing more frequently around our third anniversary. She was getting her MBA, Philippe explained, and he was mentoring her on business strategy. She'd show up at our apartment for working dinners, where they'd spread papers across our dining table and speak rapid French while I cooked. You don't mind, do you, mon amour? Philippe would ask, kissing my forehead. It's just business. I didn't mind. I was busy with work, with improving our algorithms, with building the technical infrastructure that kept our company growing. Celeste was family. Philippe was ambitious. This was normal. Looking back now, I could see every red flag I'd missed. The way Philippe's hand would rest on Celeste's lower back when they stood together. The way she'd laugh at his jokes just a beat too long. The way he started working late more often, coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. Investor dinner, he'd explain. You know how these things are. I didn't actually, because he'd stopped inviting me to investor dinners around the same time Celeste started her MBA. By our fourth anniversary, I knew something was wrong but couldn't name it. Philippe was distant, distracted. He snapped at me over small things, then apologized with expensive gifts. He started suggesting I should relax more and not work so hard. He hired a programmer to assist me without asking if I needed help. You seem stressed, he said with concern that felt rehearsed. Maybe you should take some time off. Let the team handle things for a while. The team. He'd started calling it the team instead of our company. Started saying, my business instead of our business. Started signing emails as Philippe Moreau, CEO of Predict Right, with no mention of my role. I should have seen it coming. I should have protected myself. But I was still that woman who'd said yes to a proposal in French she pretended not to understand, still trying to be small enough to fit into the space Philippe had created for me. The dinner where everything changed was 5 years and 2 months after we met. I sat at that table in his family's apartment and heard him outline my destruction in the language they thought I couldn't speak. That night, lying in bed next to a man who was planning to betray me, I finally admitted the truth. The perfect marriage had always been an illusion. I'd just been too in love, too trusting, too desperate for family to see what was right in front of me. But I saw it now. I understood everything. And I was done pretending. The morning after the dinner, I woke up before Philippe and lay perfectly still, listening to him breathe. He was sleeping on his side, facing away from me, and I studied the back of his head like I was seeing him for the first time. This man had shared my bed for 5 years while planning to destroy my life. The thought made my skin crawl, but I didn't move. I just watched him sleep and calculated my next steps. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it slowly, carefully, not wanting to wake him. Jerome had texted back. Call me at 8 a.m. I'm in the office. Whatever you need, we'll handle it. I slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen in my pajamas. Our apartment was quiet in the early morning light, the kind of expensive quiet you only get in Manhattan buildings with good insulation. I made coffee and sat at our kitchen island, the same island where Celeste had sat a dozen times with Philippe, speaking French about business while I cooked their dinner. How many times had they talked about me right in front of me? How many jokes had they shared at my expense while I smiled and nodded like a fool? At exactly 8 o'clock I called Jerome. Tell me everything, he said without preamble. I did. I told him about the dinner, about Philippe's plan to make me sign transfer papers, about the 2-year affair with Celeste, About every French conversation I'd understood and pretended I hadn't. Jerome was silent for a long moment after I finished. You're certain about what you heard? Jerome, I've been fluent in French since I was 13. I understand every word. And he doesn't know this? No one knows. Not even my mom knew before she died. It was just something Grammy and I shared. I could hear him typing on his keyboard. This is good, Simone. This is really good. He's planning to defraud you and you have the element of surprise. We can work with this. What do I do? Nothing yet. Keep playing the role. Let him think you're clueless. Meanwhile, I need you to document everything. Every conversation, every email, every document he's prepared. If he's planning to make you sign papers on Tuesday, I need to see those papers first. Can you access his computer? We share a computer for the business stuff. I have all the passwords. Perfect. Don't change anything, don't let him know you've looked, but screenshot everything. Send it to my personal email, not my work one. And Simone? Don't sign anything. If he pressures you before Tuesday, make an excuse. Pretend you're sick, pretend you forgot your glasses, pretend anything. Just don't sign. Philippe emerged from the bedroom as I was hanging up. He was wearing his robe, hair messy from sleep, looking like the man I'd fallen in love with instead of the one planning my destruction. Who was that, mon amour? He asked, kissing the top of my head. Just Jerome from college. He's in Boston for work and wanted to catch up. A flash of something crossed Philippe's face, there and gone before I could identify it. Jerome? Your lawyer friend. He's a corporate lawyer, yeah. We haven't talked in months. He just wanted to say hi. Philippe poured himself coffee, and I watched him move through our kitchen with the ease of someone who owned everything in it, including me. You should invite him to dinner sometime, he said casually. It would be nice to meet your old friends. The request was strategic, I realized. He wanted to assess threats. Jerome had always made Philippe nervous because Jerome was the one friend from my old life who'd never quite warmed to my husband. Maybe, I said vaguely. He's pretty busy. Philippe sat next to me and took my hand. I've been thinking, Sherry. You've been working so hard on the app. Maybe it's time to bring in some additional technical support. I know a few developers who could help lighten your load. Translation. He wanted to replace me before Tuesday. I don't need help, I said carefully. The system's running smoothly. Why would we add costs? It's not about cost. It's about your well-being. I worry about you spending all those hours coding. You should have time for other things. For us. He said it so sincerely, looking into my eyes like he meant every word. 5 years ago I would have melted. I would have thanked him for caring. Now I just smiled and squeezed his hand back. You're so thoughtful. Let me think about it. He kissed me then, soft and lingering, and I kissed him back like nothing had changed. When he pulled away he was smiling. I love you, you know that? I love you too, I lied. After he left for a morning meeting, I opened our shared laptop and started searching. Philippe was organized to a fault, which made my job easier. Everything was filed, labeled, dated. I found a folder labeled Business Restructuring Private, and opened it. Inside were documents that made my blood run cold. Transfer agreements that would sign over all my intellectual property rights. Corporate restructuring papers that would make Philippe the sole owner of Predict Right. A prenuptial agreement I'd never signed, forged with my signature. Letters from lawyers outlining divorce strategy. Financial projections showing company value without me. I photographed everything with my phone, then screenshotted files, then backed up entire folders to a cloud drive Philippe didn't know I had. I worked methodically, checking over my shoulder every few minutes, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. In a subfolder labeled Personal, I found emails between Philippe and Celeste going back 28 months. I didn't read them all. I didn't need to see every mon amour and G Theodore to understand what they'd been doing, but I documented them. Every single one. I found text messages too, ones he'd deleted from his phone but backed up to the cloud. Messages about me. About how simple I was, how convenient, how useful. Messages about their future together, about trips they'd take after he divorced me, about the life they'd build with my technology and my work. There was a message from 3 weeks ago where Celeste asked, "What if she refuses to sign?" Philippe had responded, "She won't. She trusts me completely. She's never questioned a single thing I've put in front of her." I photographed that one twice, making sure it was perfectly clear. By noon I had enough evidence to bury him. I sent everything to Jerome's personal email with a subject line that just said, "Evidence," and then deleted the sent message from our shared email account. Then I did something that felt bold and terrifying. I called a number I'd saved 2 years ago and forgotten about. Back when Predict Right was taking off, a venture capitalist named Robert Chen had approached me at a conference. Philippe had dismissed him as not serious, but Robert had given me his card anyway. Call me if you ever want to talk, he'd said. About the technology specifically. I think you're the real genius behind this operation. I kept the card in my wallet, buried behind old receipts. Now I dialed his number. Robert Chin, he answered on the second ring. Hi Mr. Chin. This is Simone Moreau. We met 2 years ago at the Tech Forward conference. I don't know if you remember. Of course I remember. The predictive analytics app. You explained the algorithm to me for 20 minutes, and it was the most interesting conversation I had all week. How can I help you? I took a breath. I want to talk to you about a new venture. Can we meet? Absolutely. Are you in New York? Yes. Tomorrow 10 a.m. at the coffee shop on 42nd and Madison. Does that work? Perfect. After I hung up, I stared at my phone for a long moment. I was crossing lines I couldn't uncross. I was planning something bigger than just protecting myself. I was planning to win. Philippe came home that evening with flowers and takeout from my favorite restaurant. He was being extra attentive, I realized. Setting me up to trust him even more before Tuesday. How was your day, mon amour? He asked, kissing my cheek. Good. Quiet. I worked on some back-end optimizations. We ate dinner together like we were still a happy couple. He told me about his meeting, about potential new clients, about his family's import business expanding. I listened and nodded and asked questions, playing my role perfectly. My parents want to invite us to Lyon this summer, he said casually. Maybe for a month. You could take a break from work and I could show you where I grew up. A month in France, surrounded by his family, completely isolated. A month where he could control everything. That sounds nice, I said. Let's talk about it after things settle down with the app launch. What app launch? I'd said too much. I backtracked quickly. The update. The version 3.0 update. I'm still working through the bugs. He relaxed. Right. Of course. Take your time with that, Sherry. No rush. That night, I lay awake after he fell asleep and planned. I thought about Grammy, about how she'd survived poverty and prejudice and a husband who tried to control her. She taught me French in secret because she wanted me to have tools he didn't know about. She taught me to be strong by showing me how she survived. Baby girl, she told me once, there's strength in silence. Let them think you're soft while you sharpen your knife. I wasn't sharpening a knife. I was building a case, a company, a future. And Philippe wouldn't see it coming until it was too late. I met Jerome at a small law office in Midtown, the kind of place with frosted glass doors and a receptionist who looked like she'd heard every terrible story humanity had to offer. Jerome was waiting in a conference room and he wasn't alone. Simone, this is Bianca Laurent. She specializes in intellectual property law and speaks fluent French. I thought we might need her expertise. Bianca was a petite woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a handshake that could crack walnuts. Show me everything, she said, skipping pleasantries entirely. I pulled out my phone and started walking them through the evidence. As I showed them the transfer documents, the forged prenup, the emails between Philippe and Celeste, I watched their expressions shift from professional interest to genuine anger. This is fraud, Bianca said flatly. Multiple counts. The forged signature alone is criminal. The intellectual property theft is massive. And if we can prove he planned this systematically. She looked at Jerome. We can destroy him. That's not enough, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. I don't just want to stop him. I want my company, my work, my life back. Jerome leaned forward. Tell us what you mean. I explained my meeting with Robert Chin tomorrow, my idea to start fresh with my own company, my plan to secure the source code and improvements Philippe didn't know I'd made. Everything he thinks is secure is actually mine, I continued. The core algorithm, the database architecture, the updates I've been working on, I've been building them separately, documenting them under my name alone. He thinks he has everything, but he only has an outdated version. Bianca smiled for the first time. You've been planning this. Not consciously. I just always kept detailed records. Grammy taught me to document everything. I thought it was for my own reference, but now it's evidence that you're the creator and he's been stealing credit, Jerome finished. Simone, this is good. This is really good. But we need to move fast. If he's planning to have you sign papers Tuesday, we need to file first. File what? Divorce papers. Fraud charges. Intellectual property protection. We hit him with everything at once before he knows what's happening. My hands were shaking. This was real. This was happening. What if I'm wrong? What if I misunderstood something at that dinner? Bianca pulled out her phone and clicked on an audio file. You said you recorded conversations. May I? I pulled up the recording from the dinner, the one I'd made with my phone in my pocket. Bianca listened, her expression never changing, while Philippe's voice outlined my destruction in perfect French. When it finished, she looked at me with something like respect. You didn't misunderstand anything. He's planning systematic fraud. And this recording, combined with the documents you found, gives us everything we need. Jerome started outlining a legal strategy. File for divorce immediately. File for intellectual property protection. Submit evidence of fraud to the district attorney. Freeze joint assets. Get a restraining order if necessary. He'll fight back, Jerome warned. He has resources, family money, connections. This won't be easy. I don't care about easy, I said. I care about winning. My meeting with Robert Chen the next morning was in a coffee shop near Grand Central. He was exactly as I remembered, mid-50s, silver hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He stood when he saw me and pulled out my chair. Thank you for meeting me, I said. Thank you for calling. I've been following Predictrite's growth. Impressive work. It's about to get complicated. I told him everything. Not the personal details, not the affair, just the business reality. I was being forced out of my own company through fraud. I needed to start over with technology that was legally and completely mine. Can you prove the technology is yours? He asked. I pulled out my laptop and showed him documentation going back 6 years. Design notes, code comments, algorithm development, everything time-stamped and backed up. Philippe handled business. I handled technology. These are my work logs, my code repositories, my design documents. Everything is under my name and account. Robert studied my screen, clicking through files with the focus of someone who actually understood code. This is extraordinary work. The machine learning optimization alone is graduate-level material. You built this. Every line. And your husband is trying to take it? He's trying to take everything. Robert closed my laptop and leaned back. I want to invest in whatever you build next. I want to be your first backer. Name your terms. I hadn't expected it to be that simple. I haven't even started a company yet. Start one. Today. File papers, secure the intellectual property, build your team. I'll put in $500,000 to start, more when you need it. But Simone, you need to do this right. You need lawyers, accountants, a board. You need protection. I have lawyers. What I need is technology space and the freedom to work. I'll have my assistant set you up with office space in our building. You can start tomorrow. Bring whatever equipment you need. Build whatever you want. I trust your vision. We shook hands across the table and I felt something shift inside me. For 5 years, I'd been building someone else's dream with my own hands. Now I was building my own. I spent the rest of the day filing paperwork for a new company. I called it Clarity Systems, because clarity was exactly what I'd found when I finally understood what was happening around me. I registered it under my name alone. I filed for patents on the improvements I'd been developing. I opened a business bank account and transferred money from my personal savings. Money Philippe didn't know I had because I'd kept one account from before our marriage. By 5 p.m. I had a company, an investor, office space, and a plan. I went home to find Philippe in the kitchen, cooking dinner. He never cooked. Warning bells went off immediately. Surprise, he said, smiling. I thought I'd make us something special tonight. Celebrate. Celebrate what? Our partnership. Everything we've built together. He poured wine into 2 glasses. I was thinking we should make Tuesday special too. After you sign the papers, we could go away for the weekend. Just the 2 of us. Remember when we used to do that? He was planning a celebration for my own destruction. The audacity was almost impressive. That sounds wonderful, I lied, taking the wine glass. Philippe, have I told you lately how much I appreciate everything you do? His smile widened. You don't have to say it. I know. We ate his meal, pasta that was slightly overcooked, sauce from a jar, and I complimented every bite. I played the grateful wife, the trusting partner, the woman who would sign anything he put in front of her. After dinner, Philippe's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and I caught a flash of Celeste's name before he turned it over. Work thing, he said dismissively. On a Thursday night? You know how it is. He kissed my forehead and disappeared into his office. I cleaned up the kitchen and listened to the murmur of his voice speaking French behind closed doors. I couldn't make out exact words, but I didn't need to. I knew what they were discussing. Me. Tuesday. the future they were planning. Later, when Philippe was in the shower, I checked my email. Jerome had sent me a draft of divorce papers. Bianca had filed paperwork with the patent office protecting my intellectual property. Robert had sent over lease documents for office space. Everything was in motion. Everything was real. I looked around our apartment at the life I'd built that was actually a cage I'd never seen. Grammy had been right about everything. Knowledge was power, but more than that, clarity was freedom. Philippe emerged from the bathroom in his robe, looking relaxed. "Come to bed, mon amour." I joined him, and he wrapped his arms around me like I was precious. Like he loved me. Like he wasn't planning to destroy me in 5 days. "Simone?" he murmured into my hair. "Yes. I'm a lucky man." I stared into the darkness and whispered back, "Not as lucky as you think." The weekend before Tuesday felt like living in a play where I was the only one who'd read ahead in the script. Philippe was attentive, affectionate, cooking breakfast and suggesting we spend Sunday in Central Park like we used to. I played along, smiling through brunch, holding his hand on park benches, taking selfies that he posted with captions about quality time with my beautiful wife. My phone buzzed constantly with texts I checked when he wasn't looking. Jerome coordinating with process servers. Bianca filing additional patents. Robert sending me building access codes and IT setup information. I was constructing a parallel life while Philippe thought I was just his devoted wife enjoying the autumn weather. Sunday night, while Philippe watched a soccer match, I sat with my laptop pretending to browse recipes. Actually, I was reviewing the complete source code for Predict Right, identifying every component I'd personally built. The core algorithm was entirely mine. The database architecture was mine. The user interface optimization was mine. Philippe's contributions had been business strategy and investor relations. Important for a company but not the actual product. The beautiful thing about being the only person who truly understood the technology was that I could see exactly how to extract myself from it. The current version of Predict Right ran on code I'd written, but I'd been developing improvements for months that lived only on my personal devices. Better algorithms, faster processing, more accurate predictions. Philippe didn't know they existed because I'd learned to stop sharing everything with him. I'd started developing them after his second working late excuse last year, not because I suspected anything specific but because I'd felt the distance growing between us. Coding had always been my therapy and I'd poured my confusion into building something better. Now that something better would be my insurance policy. Monday morning, I told Philippe I had a doctor's appointment. He barely looked up from his phone, probably texting Celeste. "Feel better, mon amour," he said absently. I took the subway to Robert's building in Midtown, rode the elevator to the 15th floor, and walked into my new office. It was small but perfect. Big window, empty desk, reliable internet. Everything I needed to rebuild. I spent the day transferring my personal code to secure servers, setting up development environments, creating comprehensive documentation that proved when and how I'd created every innovation. Every file was time-stamped, backed up, legally protected. By 5 p.m., I had a complete technical portfolio that was undeniably mine. Robert stopped by around 3. "How's it going?" "Good. Really good." I showed him the improvements I'd made to the core algorithm. "This is what I've been developing independently. It's 30% more accurate than the current Predict Right version, and the processing speed is doubled." He studied my screen with the intensity of someone who understood enough code to be dangerous. "This is remarkable. When can you launch?" "Once the legal situation is resolved. Maybe 3 months. "And the current version that your husband has?" "It'll work for now, but without me there to maintain it and implement updates, it'll start showing problems within 6 months. Technology needs constant improvement or it becomes obsolete." Robert smiled. "So either he keeps you, which he's planning not to do, or his company slowly fails." "Basically." "Brilliant. You've built in your own obsolescence protection." I hadn't thought of it that way, but he was right. Philippe needed me far more than he realized. He just thought he could replace me with any competent programmer. He didn't understand that what I'd built wasn't just code, it was architecture, vision, constant innovation. You couldn't hire that. You could only steal it if the creator was naive enough to let you. I wasn't naive anymore. That evening at home, Philippe was excited about Tuesday. He kept talking about the business meeting we had scheduled, how it was just routine paperwork, how he'd already made reservations at my favorite restaurant for afterward. "We should celebrate," he said, pouring wine I didn't drink. "Tomorrow is an important day for the company. For us." "What makes it so important?" I asked innocently. "Just finalizing some growth plans. Investor requirements, boring stuff." but it positions us for the next phase. He took my hand. I couldn't have done any of this without you, Simone. I hope you know that. The lies came so smoothly. I wondered if he'd always been this good at deception or if he'd developed the skill over time. I'm proud of what we built together, I said, which was technically true. I was proud of what I'd built. The together part was the fiction. That night I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow morning, process servers would arrive at Philippe's family's import business office where he worked. They'd hand him divorce papers, fraud allegations, intellectual property claims. His perfect plan would explode before he even got me to sign his fake documents. I played the scenarios in my head. Would he call me first? Come home angry? Try to convince me it was a misunderstanding? I told Jerome and Bianca I'd be at my new office when it happened. I didn't want to be anywhere near Philippe when he found out. At 3 a.m. I got out of bed and checked my phone. Robert had emailed, "Whatever happens tomorrow, remember you're not just protecting yourself. You're standing up for every creator who's been stolen from. That takes courage. You have it." I sat in our dark living room and thought about Grammy. She'd survived worse than this. She'd survived poverty and racism and a husband who hit her. She'd raised my mother alone after leaving him, worked 2 jobs, sent mom to nursing school. She taught me French in secret because she believed knowledge was the one thing no one could take from you. "You're stronger than you know, baby girl," she told me shortly before she died. "You come from strong women. Don't ever let anyone make you forget that." I wouldn't forget. Tomorrow I'd prove it. Tuesday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth. I woke at 6 before Philippe's alarm and lay still in the pre-dawn light. This was the last morning I'd wake up in this apartment as his wife. By tonight, everything would be different. Philippe's alarm went off at 6:30. He stretched, kissed my shoulder, completely relaxed. "Big day," he murmured. Yes, I agreed. Big day. I made coffee while he showered, playing the role one last time. When he emerged dressed in his best suit, the navy one he wore for important meetings, I handed him his cup exactly how he liked it. "You look nice," I said. "Important meeting this morning before our appointment. Investor call." Another lie, probably. More time with Celeste planning their future. "What time should I meet you at the lawyer's office?" I asked, knowing there would be no meeting. "Noon. I'll text you the address." He'd never text me an address because there was no appointment. By noon he'd be dealing with lawyers of a very different kind. After he left, I got dressed carefully. Professional black pants, a blue blouse, comfortable shoes. I packed my laptop, my phone, and a folder of documents I'd prepared. Then I took one last look around the apartment we'd shared. 5 years of my life in this space. 5 years of believing in a future that was never real. The furniture we'd chosen together was just furniture. The art on the walls was just decoration. None of it meant anything once you understood the foundation was built on lies. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter and walked out. At my new office, I set up my laptop and waited. Jerome had promised to text me the moment Philippe was served. Bianca was handling the patent office filings this morning. Robert was in meetings but had left me a note. "Today you take your life back. Proud of you." The text came at 9:47 a.m. "He's been served. Didn't go well. Stay where you are. Don't answer his calls." My phone started ringing within minutes. Philippe's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Then the text started, first in English. "Simone, what is happening? Call me now." Then French. "Tu sais que tu es fate? Comment assis tu? What have you done? How dare you?" The shift from English to French was telling. When he was trying to manipulate me, he used English. When he was genuinely emotional, he used his native language. I'd learned that pattern years ago. More texts. "This is insane. I'm your husband. We can fix this. Just call me." Then, "Where are you? Come home. We need to talk." Then, "You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this." The threats were starting. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to Jerome. His response, "Perfect. Keep documenting. Don't engage." My phone rang again, but this time it was an unknown number. I considered ignoring it, then answered cautiously. "Hello? Is this Simone Moreau?" A woman's voice, older, sharp with authority. "Yes. This is Genevieve Moreau, Philippe's mother. I believe we need to speak." I should have hung up. Instead I said, "About what, Genevieve?" She switched to French immediately, probably assuming I wouldn't understand. "You ungrateful girl. After everything my son did for you, gave you, this is how you repay him? With lies and legal attacks. I responded in perfect French. I repaid him with 5 years of my work, my ideas, and my trust. He repaid me with theft and betrayal. We're even now. Silence. Long shocked silence. You speak French? Her voice was quieter now, uncertain. Fluently. I understood every word you and your family ever said about me. Every insult, every joke, every plan. I heard all of it. You never said. No, I never said. That was my mistake. I should have confronted you years ago instead of pretending I didn't understand how little you all thought of me. But I'm done pretending. She hung up. I sat staring at my phone, my hands shaking with adrenaline. Jerome called 20 minutes later. His lawyer just contacted me. Philippe wants to meet, just you and him, to talk reasonably. I told them absolutely not. Don't agree to any private meetings. I won't. There's something else. His family is flying in. Apparently they're arriving tonight. I think they're planning to pressure you into dropping the suit. Let them try. But the news unsettled me. Philippe's entire family descending on New York meant they were taking this seriously. They had resources, connections, and the kind of old money arrogance that assumed problems could be fixed with pressure and influence. I spent the afternoon coding, losing myself in the clean logic of algorithms and data structures. Code made sense. Code did what you told it to do. Code didn't lie or betray or pretend to love you while planning your destruction. Around 5, Robert stopped by with takeout. Thought you might not want to go home tonight. I'm not going home. I booked a hotel. Smart. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Angry. Scared. But fine. His family is arriving tonight? According to Jerome. They're going to make this ugly, Robert warned. Old French families like the Moreaus, they don't like being challenged, especially by someone they considered beneath them. They'll try to paint you as emotional, unstable, vindictive. I have evidence. Documents, recordings, testimony. The truth doesn't care about their spin. The truth matters in court. In the court of public opinion, narrative matters more. Just be prepared. I nodded, picking at my food. Robert, why are you helping me? You barely know me. He considered the question carefully. Because I've been in tech for 30 years and I've seen this story too many times. Brilliant person creates something revolutionary, charismatic person takes credit, original creator gets erased. Usually by the time I meet them, it's too late to help. But you caught it early. You protected yourself. That's rare. That's worth supporting. I just didn't want to be erased. Most people don't want that. But you did something about it. That's the difference. That night at the hotel, I couldn't stop checking my phone. Philippe had stopped calling, which somehow felt more ominous than the constant attempts earlier. At 11 p.m., a new text arrived from a number I didn't recognize. Hello Simone, this is Isabel, Philippe's sister. I'm in New York. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow morning? Just to talk woman to woman. Please. Isabel had always been the kindest of Philippe's family. She'd never said cruel things about me in French, at least not that I'd heard. She'd seemed genuinely friendly during family gatherings. I called Jerome. Philippe's sister wants to meet me. Don't do it. It's a trap. They're trying to find a weak point. What if she's genuine? What if she wants to help? Simone, she's his family. Her loyalty is to him, not to you. Whatever she says will be used against you later. Trust me on this. I thanked him and hung up. Then I texted Isabel back. I appreciate the offer, but I need to respectfully decline. This is a legal matter now, and my lawyers have advised against private meetings. I hope you understand. Her response came immediately, I do understand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You deserved better than what my brother gave you. I stared at that message for a long time. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she didn't. Either way, Jerome was right. I couldn't afford to find out. Wednesday morning, I returned to my office to find a massive flower arrangement on my desk. No card, but I knew who sent it. Philippe had always believed grand gestures could fix anything. I called building security to remove them. They're just flowers, the security guard said. They're from someone I have a restraining order against. I lied. Please remove them immediately. Jerome called at 9. Judge granted the injunction. Philippe is officially barred from accessing Predictrite's technical systems or claiming credit for your work. He can run the business side, but he can't touch the technology. What does that mean practically? It means the company can continue operating with the current code, but he can't make changes, can't access your development files, can't claim he created anything technical. And if the company needs updates or fixes, he has to hire someone new because you're not obligated to maintain it. So the company will start failing once the current version becomes outdated. Exactly. You built in your own protection without even realizing it. Bianca joined the call. I have more good news. The patent office fast-tracked your applications. Your improvements are now officially protected under your name alone. If Philippe tries to use any of your new work, it's immediate copyright infringement. I felt something loosen in my chest. So legally everything's protected? Everything technical is yours and protected. Now we just need to handle the divorce and the fraud charges. Speaking of which, the DA's office called. They're interested in the forged prenuptial agreement. That's a felony. Will he go to jail? Possibly. More likely he'll take a plea deal if we can prove intent to defraud. But Simone, you need to prepare yourself. This is about to get very public. Philippe's family has money and connections. They're going to fight dirty. She was right. That afternoon, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, the truth about Simone Moreau. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew I shouldn't. But I did. It was a document, professionally formatted, outlining a completely fabricated version of our marriage. According to this narrative, I was an unstable, jealous wife who'd become paranoid about Philippe's success. I'd stolen company files and trade secrets. I'd forged documents to make it look like I'd contributed more than I had. I was trying to destroy him out of spite because he'd suggested we needed space. The entire thing was fiction, but it was convincing fiction. It had fake quotes from unnamed sources. It referenced medical records, suggesting I had mental health issues. It claimed Philippe had tried to get me help, but I'd refused. I forwarded it to Jerome immediately. Is this legal? Can they just send this? It's not illegal to send you lies. It would be illegal to publish them publicly without evidence. Who sent it? Anonymous email address. Probably someone from his family. They're testing to see if they can intimidate you into dropping the suit. Don't respond. Don't engage. Just document it. But the document stayed with me all day. Someone had spent time crafting a detailed character assassination. Someone wanted me to know they could destroy my reputation even if they couldn't touch my legal case. That evening, I got a call from my old college friend Monica. We hadn't spoken in months. Simone, what's going on? I just got the weirdest call from some woman claiming to be Philippe's sister. She said you were going through a difficult time and might need support, and could I talk to you about being reasonable about the divorce? My stomach dropped. They're calling my friends? She didn't say anything specific, just that you were upset and maybe not thinking clearly. I told her I didn't appreciate strangers calling me about my friend's personal business. But, Simone, what's happening? I gave her the abbreviated version. Monica's response was immediate and profane. He did what? And his family is harassing your friends? Simone, you need to go scorched earth on these people. I'm trying. I have lawyers, evidence, everything. But they have money and connections. You have the truth. And you have people who actually care about you. Give me permission to tell our mutual friends what's really happening. Let me spread the actual story before his family's version takes hold. I thought about Grammy, about staying silent, about keeping secrets. But maybe this was different. Maybe sometimes you had to speak up to be heard. Okay, I said. Tell them the truth. Philippe called from a blocked number that night. I was exhausted enough to answer. What do you want? Simone. His voice was ragged. Can we please just talk? Face to face? Without lawyers. No. I never meant for it to go this far. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. You didn't make mistakes, Philippe. You committed fraud. You forged my signature. You planned to steal my work and discard me. Those aren't mistakes. Those are crimes. I loved you, he said, and he almost sounded sincere. I still love you. You loved what I could give you. The technology, the credibility, the legitimacy. You never loved me. That's not true. We built something together. I built something. You took credit for it. There's a difference. Simone, please. My family, the business, everything is falling apart. The investors are pulling out. The company is hemorrhaging clients. You're destroying everything we worked for. I'm destroying what I built. You don't get to keep it just because you're better at networking and lying. I'll fight you on this. I have resources, lawyers, connections. You can't win. I already did. The court documents are public. The evidence is documented. Your fraud is exposed. Whether you accept it or not doesn't change the facts. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, in French, I underestimated you. I thought you were soft, compliant. I should have known better. I responded in French, yes, you should have. Grammy always said the quietest people are often the strongest. You just never bothered to look beyond what you wanted to see. He hung up. I sat in my hotel room and let myself cry for the first time since the dinner. Not because I missed him or regretted my choices, but because 5 years of my life had been built on a foundation of lies, and no matter how strong my case was, I couldn't get those years back. But I could build something new. Something real. Something mine. And that's exactly what I was going to do. The story broke on Thursday morning through a tech industry blog called Silicon Insider. The headline read, "Predict Right founder embroiled in fraud scandal, wife claims intellectual property theft." I was drinking coffee at my desk when Robert texted me the link. My hands shook as I read the article. It was surprisingly balanced, presenting both sides but leaning heavily on the fact that court documents showed substantial evidence of my claims. They'd interviewed several industry insiders who remembered me from early conferences, who confirmed I'd been the technical brain behind Predict Right. One quote stood out, "I talked to Simone Moreau about machine learning for 45 minutes at Tech Forward in 2020. She understood the mathematics and architecture at a level that suggested she'd built everything from scratch." Philippe Moreau, in my limited interactions with him, always deflected technical questions or gave surface-level answers. The evidence in this case seems to support what some of us suspected all along. By noon, 3 more tech publications had picked up the story. By end of day it was trending on tech Twitter. Comments ranged from supportive to skeptical to viciously angry. At Tech Ethics Now, this is why we need better IP protection for technical founders. Too many business side partners taking credit for work they didn't do. At Startup Advice, waiting for more evidence before judging, but if true, this is another example of why proper documentation and legal protection matter from day one. At Code and Coffee, Philippe Moreau spoke at our conference last year. He couldn't answer basic questions about his own algorithm. Now we know why. But there were also comments defending Philippe, suggesting I was bitter about a divorce, that I was exaggerating my contributions, that this was a he said, she said situation where the truth was probably somewhere in the middle. The worst were the ones that got personal. "She's just mad he upgraded to someone younger." Typical, woman can't handle rejection so she destroys her ex's business. Bet she's not even that good at coding, probably just decent at documentation. I closed Twitter and focused on work. I couldn't control what people said. I could only control what I built next. Jerome called with an update. Philippe's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss. Standard procedure. Judge denied it based on the evidence. We're going to trial unless he agrees to settle. What would a settlement look like? You get full ownership of your intellectual property, he admits no wrongdoing but signs a statement acknowledging your contributions, you split marital assets fairly, and he pays damages for emotional distress and legal fees. Probably around $2 million total. And if we go to trial? You could get more but it'll take longer and be more public. Your choice. I thought about it. The money wasn't the point. The acknowledgement of my work was the point. But dragging this through a trial meant months more of my life consumed by Philippe and his family's lies. Let's see if he'll settle, I said. But I wanted in writing that he acknowledges I created the core technology. I won't settle without that. I'll draw up terms. That afternoon I had my first investor call for Clarity Systems. Robert had connected me with 3 VCs who were interested in my improved algorithm. I demonstrated the technology, explained the improvements I'd made, walked them through projected applications and market potential. They asked smart questions. They treated me like the expert I was. They never once asked where my business partner was or whether I could handle a company alone. By the end of the call, I had commitments for $3 million in series of funding, pending due diligence and formal proposals. This is excellent work, one investor said. I'm honestly shocked you were willing to share it with a previous partner. This is yours and it's valuable. I'm learning not to share everything with people who don't deserve it, I said. Smart woman. We'll be in touch. After they logged off, I sat back and let myself feel proud. I'd built something valuable. I protected it. I was rebuilding. This was real progress. Robert stopped by with dinner, Thai food from the place around the corner. I saw the articles. How are you holding up? Fine. Angry at some of the comments, but fine. The tech community has short attention spans. Next week there'll be some other scandal. But the people who matter, the investors, the serious professionals, they're paying attention to your work, not the gossip. I just want to move forward. I'm tired of looking backward. Then let's talk about Clarity Systems. You have funding, you have space, you have technology. What's your timeline for launch? We spent the next hour planning. I'd need to hire a small team, a designer, another developer, a business development person. I'd need to finish building out the full application. I'd need marketing, customer acquisition strategy, legal contracts. This is real, I said, looking at our notes. I'm actually doing this. You've been doing this the whole time, Robert corrected. You just finally have a business structure that acknowledges it. That night, back at the hotel, I got an email from a woman I didn't know. Subject: Thank you for speaking up. Hi Simone, you don't know me, but I'm a software engineer who's been following your story. 3 years ago, I built a platform with my boyfriend. He convinced me to put the company in his name because he had better business connections. Last year, he sold the company for $8 million and gave me nothing. When I tried to fight it, everyone said I was bitter about our breakup. I had no documentation, no evidence, nothing. Reading about your case made me realize I should have protected myself better. But it also made me feel less alone. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for documenting. Thank you for showing that we don't have to accept being erased. I hope you win everything. I read it twice, then 3 times. I responded, I'm so sorry that happened to you. You deserved better. We all do. If you ever want to talk about protecting your work going forward, I'm happy to share what I've learned. Clarity Systems will be hiring soon if you're interested. She responded within minutes with her resume. By the end of the week, I'd received 17 similar emails. 17 stories of technical founders who'd been erased, stolen from, betrayed by partners they trusted. Some were women, some were men, some were people from marginalized communities who believed that being brilliant would be enough. I saved every email. I responded to every one. And I realized that this fight was bigger than just me and Philippe. It was about every creator who'd been told their contributions didn't matter as much as someone else's charisma or connections. Friday afternoon, Jerome called with news. Philippe's lawyer reached out. He wants to settle. He's willing to accept your terms. All of them? Including the acknowledgement. All of them. Apparently his investors are furious about the negative publicity. The company's valuation has dropped 40% this week. His family's import business is facing scrutiny from American partners who don't want to be associated with fraud. He's bleeding money and reputation. Good. Simone, he's ruined. His visa is tied to the company, and if the company fails, he'll have to leave the country. His family's reputation is damaged. Celeste broke up with him. He's got nothing left. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. Send me the settlement papers. I'll review and sign if everything's there. You're sure? We could push for more. I don't want more. I want to move on. That evening, I stood in my office looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The sun was setting, painting the buildings in shades of orange and pink and purple. Somewhere out there, Philippe was signing papers that admitted what I'd always known. I was the creator. I was the genius. I was the one who built something from nothing. He'd get to keep whatever remained of Predict Right, but it was a sinking ship now. Without updates, without innovation, without me, it would be obsolete within a year. I had something better. Something new. Something entirely mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Settlement signed? Almost, I replied. Good. Because I just heard from Forbes. They want to interview you for a piece on women founders reclaiming their work. Interested? I looked at my reflection in the dark window. 5 years ago, I'd been a woman who let her husband choose her clothes and speak for her in meetings. Now I was someone who'd fought back, who'd protected her work, who'd built something new from the ashes of betrayal. Yes, I texted back. I'm interested. The settlement conference was scheduled for Monday morning in a courtroom that smelled like old wood and bureaucracy. I arrived with Jerome and Bianca, wearing a navy suit that made me feel professional and powerful. Philippe was already there with his lawyer, sitting on the opposite side of the room like we were strangers. He looked terrible. His expensive suit hung loose on a frame that had lost weight. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His hands fidgeted with papers on the table in front of him. When I walked in, he looked up and our eyes met. I felt nothing. No love, no hate, no regret. Just the calm certainty that I was doing exactly what needed to be done. The judge reviewed the settlement terms, asking if both parties understood and agreed. Philippe's voice was barely audible when he said yes. Mine was clear and firm. Mr. Moreau, you acknowledge that Ms. Moreau created the core technology for Predict Right? Yes, Your Honor. And you acknowledge that you systematically took credit for her work? Pause. His lawyer whispered something. Then, yes, Your Honor. And you agree to the financial terms outlined in this settlement? Yes, Your Honor. The judge signed the papers and just like that it was over. I was divorced. I owned all my intellectual property. I had a settlement check that would fund Clarity Systems through launch and beyond. I walked out of that courtroom a single woman with a company and a future. Philippe tried to approach me in the hallway. Jerome stepped between us immediately. "Don't," Jerome said firmly. Philippe looked at me over Jerome's shoulder. "Simone, I'm sorry. For everything. I hope you know that." I could have said a lot of things. I could have told him his apology was worthless. I could have listed every way he'd hurt me. Instead, I said the only thing that mattered: I don't accept your apology, but I accept what happened. It taught me who I am and what I'm capable of. So in a way, thank you. Then I walked away. The Forbes article published the following week under the headline, "How One Woman Reclaimed Her Technology and Her Life." It featured photos from a professional shoot Robert had arranged. Me in my office at my computer, confident and composed. The article detailed the case without being salacious, focusing on the legal and technical aspects of intellectual property protection for founders. The journalist, a woman named Patricia, had asked thoughtful questions. "What do you want other technical founders to learn from your experience?" "Document everything," I'd said. "Keep records of your work, your contributions, your innovations. Don't assume trust is enough protection. And if you have a partner, make sure legal agreements are clear from day one. Love doesn't protect intellectual property. Paperwork does." "What's next for you?" "I'm launching Clarity Systems in 3 months. We'll offer the technology one developed, improved and independent. I'm hiring a team of developers, many of them people who've been overlooked or underestimated in their previous positions. I want to build a company that values actual contributions over charisma." "Do you regret the marriage?" I thought about that question carefully. I regret the betrayal. I don't regret what I learned. I'm stronger now than I was 5 years ago. I understand my worth. That's valuable. The article went viral in tech circles. I received dozens of emails from other founders, mostly women and people of color, sharing similar stories. Some asked for advice. Some asked if Clarity Systems was hiring. Some just wanted to say thank you for speaking up. I hired 3 people that first month. Alicia, the woman who'd emailed me after reading about the case, who'd had her own platform stolen. James, a brilliant black developer who'd been passed over for promotion at his last company despite creating their core product. And Rita, a designer from India who'd been told her work was too ethnic for mainstream tech. We were a team of people who'd been underestimated, and we were building something that would prove everyone wrong. The Predict Right story played out exactly as I'd predicted. Without my updates and maintenance, the app started showing errors. Clients complained. Competitors released better versions. Philippe tried to hire developers to fix it, but the code was complex and poorly documented. I'd built it for myself, not for handoff. Within 4 months, Predict Right had lost 60% of its subscribers. Within 6 months, the company was insolvent. Philippe sold what remained to a competitor for a fraction of its former value. His work visa expired. His family's import business suffered from the association with fraud and lost several major American contracts. The Moreaus returned to France, their American expansion plans abandoned. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Philippe was working for his father's company in Lyon, in a junior position, his ambitions thoroughly destroyed by his own choices. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall, but I felt no regret either. He'd made his decisions. I'd made mine. The consequences were just math. Celeste tried to reach out to me once, sending a LinkedIn message. "I know you probably hate me, but I want you to know I didn't fully understand what Philippe was doing. I believed his version of events. I'm sorry for my part in hurting you." I deleted it without responding. Her apology, like Philippe's, was for her own peace of mind, not for mine. The DA's office decided not to pursue criminal charges for the forged prenup. "Insufficient evidence of criminal intent," they said, which translated to "he has expensive lawyers and we have limited resources." I was disappointed but not surprised. The civil case had been won. That was enough. 3 months after the settlement, Clarity Systems officially launched. Our improved algorithm was faster, more accurate, and more user-friendly than anything else on the market. We secured 20 enterprise clients in the first month, 50 by month 3. Robert's firm invested another $2 million in series of funding. Other VCs followed. By month 6, we were valued at $15 million. I gave an interview to a tech podcast where the host asked, "Do you think you would have built Clarity Systems if you'd stayed married to Philippe?" "No," I answered honestly. I would have kept making him successful while making myself smaller. Sometimes betrayal is the push you need to become who you were always meant to be. The interview was downloaded 50,000 times in the first week. I hired a PR person not because I loved publicity but because I wanted to control the narrative. Too many stories about women in tech focused on the drama, the betrayal, the victim arc. I wanted my story to be about the rebuild, the success, the innovation. Former founder launches rival company, became tech innovator launches revolutionary platform. Woman wins divorce settlement became entrepreneur secures funding for new venture. I refused to be defined by what Philippe had done to me. I would be defined by what I'd built despite him. 1 year after the settlement, Clarity Systems had 200 employees and a valuation of $75 million. We'd expanded beyond predictive analytics into machine learning applications for healthcare, education, and environmental sustainability. I was on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine, building something better, how Simone Moreau created a tech company that values what really matters. In the photo I was smiling, confident, surrounded by my team. The caption read, "Success isn't about who takes credit. It's about who creates value." Philippe saw the article. I know because his sister Isabel, the only member of his family who'd stayed in occasional contact, sent me a message. "Philippe saw your magazine cover. He told our mother, I created a monster." I told him, "No, you just never recognized the genius she always was. Congratulations on everything you've built." I didn't respond, but I saved the message. Not because I cared what Philippe thought, but because Isabel's correction was exactly right. He hadn't created anything. I'd been a genius the whole time. He just never bothered to look. 18 months after the divorce, I stood on a stage in Montreal at the International Bilingual Tech Summit, speaking to 200 developers and founders in both English and French. The topic was intellectual property protection for technical founders, and the room was packed. The question I get asked most often, I said, switching between languages smoothly, is whether I'm angry. People want to know if I'm bitter about what happened, if I hate my ex-husband, if I want revenge. I paused, looking out at the faces watching me. Some were young developers just starting out. Some were founders who'd been through their own battles. Some were students taking notes on their laptops. The truth is, I'm not angry anymore. I was for a while. Anger was useful. It motivated me to fight, to document, to protect myself. But staying angry would have been like drinking poison and expecting him to die. What I am now is grateful. That got some confused looks. I smiled. I'm grateful because being betrayed forced me to become someone stronger. It taught me to value my own work. It showed me who I could be when I stopped making myself smaller for someone else's comfort. My ex-husband thought he was stealing my future. Instead, he gave me the push I needed to build something better than I ever would have built with him. After the presentation, during the networking session, a young Haitian-American developer approached me. He was tall and lean, with thoughtful eyes behind black-framed glasses and an easy smile. "That was an incredible presentation," he said in English, then switched to French. "Especially the parts about protecting your work from day one. I wish I'd heard this 5 years ago." "Bad experience with a partner?" I asked in French. "Something like that. I'm Thomas Jean-Baptiste. I've been following Clarity Systems since launch. Your machine learning optimization is brilliant." We talked for 20 minutes about algorithms and code architecture and the challenges of building ethical AI. He understood the technical concepts deeply, asked smart questions, made observations that showed real expertise. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I was having a technical conversation with someone who treated me like an equal expert rather than someone who needed concepts explained. "Have you considered applications in agricultural sustainability?" Thomas asked. "I've been working on a project to help small farmers in Haiti optimize crop yields using predictive analytics, but the algorithm needs work." "I'd love to hear more about it," I said genuinely. We exchanged information and agreed to grab coffee the next morning before the conference's second day. As he walked away, I felt something I hadn't felt since before Philippe. Genuine interest in another person that had nothing to do with loneliness or need or trying to fill a space. The next morning, Thomas and I met at a cafe near the conference center. We talked for 2 hours about his agriculture project, about applying machine learning to climate adaptation, about the ethics of technology in developing countries. He was passionate about using tech to help communities rather than just maximize profit. "Most VCs think it's not scalable enough," he said with a wry smile. "They want the next billion-dollar app, not something that helps farmers feed their families. Maybe you're talking to the wrong VCs. Clarity Systems has an innovation fund specifically for projects that create social value. We could talk about it." His eyes lit up. "You're serious?" "I don't joke about tech investments. Send me your project proposal." If the technology is sound and the impact is real, we'll consider funding. We spent the rest of the conference attending panels together, grabbing meals between sessions, debating approaches to different technical problems. It was easy and comfortable and intellectually stimulating in a way I'd forgotten relationships could be. On the last night, over dinner at a small bistro, Thomas asked, "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask." I might not answer. "The story about your ex-husband, the fraud, all of that. Do you ever worry about trusting people again? About building something with someone else?" I considered the question honestly. I used to. Right after everything happened, I thought I'd never trust anyone in a professional capacity again. But then I built Clarity Systems with a whole team of people, and I learned that trust isn't about being naive. It's about being smart. Having clear agreements. Documenting contributions. Trusting people to be human, which means sometimes they'll disappoint you, but protecting yourself so disappointment can't destroy you. That's practical but also kind of sad. Is it? I think it's realistic. My grandmother used to say, "Trust people to be who they are, not who you want them to be." I didn't understand that when I was young. I do now. Thomas smiled. Your grandmother sounds like she was wise. She was the wisest person I've ever known. I wish she could have seen what I built. She would have been proud. I think she'd be incredibly proud. We stayed in touch after the conference. Thomas sent me his project proposal and it was excellent. Thoughtful, technically sound, with realistic projections and a clear understanding of both the technology and the communities it would serve. Clarity Systems funded it with a 2-year grant. Thomas flew to New York a month later to set up the project infrastructure, and we spent his visit working together during the day and talking late into the night about everything from code to family to dreams. He told me about growing up between Haiti and New Jersey, about learning to code in his father's repair shop, about wanting to use technology to help rather than exploit. "You remind me of why I got into tech in the first place," I told him one evening. "It's easy to get caught up in valuations and exits and forget that technology should serve people." You haven't forgotten. Look at what you've built at Clarity Systems. The healthcare applications, the education programs, the environmental monitoring. That's all serving people. I had to lose everything to remember what mattered. Maybe. Or maybe you always knew and you just needed the freedom to act on it. We started a collaboration on his agriculture project that turned into a friendship that turned into something more. It was slow and careful and nothing like the whirlwind with Philippe. Thomas respected my boundaries, understood my caution, never pushed for more than I was ready to give. 6 months after Montreal, during a video call about project updates, he asked, "Would you consider letting me take you to dinner?" Not a work dinner. A date. I smiled. I'd consider it. But I need you to know that I'm not looking for a partner. I'm not looking to build a company with someone or merge my life with someone else's life. I'm happy with what I've built alone. I'm not asking you to build something with me. I'm asking if you'd like to have dinner. That's it. No expectations beyond that. So we had dinner. Then another. Then more. Thomas was patient and kind and never tried to be anything other than himself. He celebrated my success without trying to attach himself to it. He had his own work, his own passions, his own identity. "This is different," I told him after 3 months of careful dating. "You're different." "Different how?" "You don't need me to be smaller so you can feel bigger. You don't take credit for my ideas or try to speak for me in meetings. You're not threatened by my success." "Why would I be threatened? Your success is inspiring. It makes me want to build better things too." Philippe was threatened. He needed to be the star and I was supposed to be the support crew. Then Philippe was an idiot. Thomas took my hand. "Simone, I like you exactly as you are. Brilliant, successful, careful, strong. I'm not here to change you or use you or diminish you. I'm just here because I enjoy your company." It was the healthiest relationship I'd ever had, built on mutual respect and clear communication rather than grand gestures and dramatic declarations. We didn't talk about marriage or moving in together or merging our lives. We just enjoyed each other's company and built our separate careers while supporting each other's goals. 2 years after the divorce, Clarity Systems was valued at $200 million. We'd expanded to 300 employees across 4 cities. I'd been invited to speak at conferences around the world. I'd been featured in documentaries about women in tech. I'd become exactly the kind of founder I'd always had the potential to be. And I'd done it on my own terms. One evening, working late at the office, I got an unexpected email from Isabelle Moreau. "I thought you'd want to know, Philippe is getting married. To a woman from Lyon who works in his father's company. He seems happy, or at least resigned to a different life than he planned. I hope you're well." You deserve every success you've achieved. I read it once and deleted it. Philippe's happiness or unhappiness wasn't my concern anymore. He was a chapter in my history, not a part of my present. I looked around my office in my company built with my work and my vision. On the wall were framed photos. Me giving the keynote at Tech Forward, the Clarity Systems team at our launch party, the magazine covers, the awards. There was also one small photo I kept on my desk. Me and Grammy taken the summer before she died, both of us laughing at something I couldn't remember now. She was holding a book of French poetry, and I was holding a notebook filled with early code experiments. I did it, Grammy, I whispered to the photo. I built something that matters. I became someone who matters. Just like you taught me. My phone buzzed. Thomas, texting from a conference in Port-au-Prince. Just demoed the agriculture app to a room full of farmers. They loved it. 16 communities want to pilot the program. This is going to work. Thank you for believing in it. I texted back. Thank you for building something worth believing in. Then I returned to my work, building the next version of technology that would help thousands of businesses operate more efficiently, more ethically, more successfully. Building something that was entirely mine, that no one could take credit for, that represented everything I'd learned about protecting your work and knowing your worth. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I wasn't looking backward at all. I was too busy building forward, creating something better than I'd ever imagined possible when I was sitting at that dinner table hearing my husband plan my destruction in a language he thought I didn't understand. Grammy had been right about everything. Knowledge was power. Silence could be strategy. And sometimes the best revenge was just being absolutely, undeniably successful. I smiled at my computer screen and kept coding, building my future one line at a time.